Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of One Man Stream. We have the football season fastly approaching, and today's episode we're going to tackle a new football graphic for 2026. This is One Man Stream episode 143, and we're going to call this Football Graphic 2026. Now, this is what we're going to be building today, and I'm going to show you how to do this step by step. But one thing I'm going to do that I haven't done in the past is I'm going to treat this in two different ways. I'm going to treat it as if you were an absolute beginner and you know nothing about GT Title Designer. And I'm also going to treat it as if you're more experienced and you already have an idea of how to create graphics in vMix. Well, how am I going to do both of this? Well, the beginning of this tutorial is going to be an explanation of GT Title Designer. And then at a certain point, I'm going to start showing you how to build this graphic. Now, in the comments within this tutorial, I'm going to have a time point where you can skip the basics if you already know it and go right to the graphic construction. But to start off with, we're going to go to GT Title Designer. Now, we basically have two layers. We also have a second layer that I have turned off right now. And in the second layer, if I turn it on, you can see there's an additional area there that you can put other information. You could put sponsor information. You could actually have sponsor logos that are sponsor text that rotate through there. You could have information going on about the game. If you have any type of a weather issue, weather delay, you could put that information there as well. But there is a second part to this graphic, and I'm going to go ahead and turn that off, but know that within this graphic, there is this other lower portion to it. I will make this graphic available at the website, and it should be there once this video is posted. And if you're interested, you can always stop by our website. That's at onemanstream.com. We have the graphics we've created along with many of the vMix UTC controllers. And as I always say, they're just a few dollars a piece, but it is a way that you can help support me here at One Man Stream. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a quick layout of what this graphic is and the layout of GT Title Designer. Now, right up here where it says text block, anything that you see, like this information right here, these numbers, the first quarter, the time, down and distance, the information right here for the team's record, all that is done by using the ABC text block. This next one, it says rectangle. This is what we use to create the different shapes within this graphic. Now, to get started, all you would do is you would click on this right here, and then you would just drag it out, whatever size you want, and then after that, you start to manipulate it. Now, you'll be able to see right here where I have a skew. If you go to effects, you can see right here where the skew information goes. If you do a negative, you can do a negative or a positive. So if you go negative 20, which is normally what I use, you can see where it kind of skews it over to the left. And if you do a positive 20, you can see where it kind of skews it over to the right. Now, something else that I also use under format is the radius. Now, I normally use a radius of like 20 on the X and 30 on the Y. And what that does is it kind of rounds these edges over and gives us this effect that we're looking for right here. Now, I do have a trick that I'm going to show you. If you tried to create this same swoop here on the edge, time and time again, you're going to have a lot of difficulty creating that same radius on each one of these different elements. And I've got a trick to show you how to do that, and we'll cover that as well. So let's go ahead and get rid of that for right now. The next thing that I use is this right here, which is the image. When you click on this, it's going to take you to this dialog box right here. And then you go to wherever your images are and you select an image. The two images that I selected were right here for North Odom and right here for Odom County. And I'll also have image masks in there. You can see how it kind of rounds these edges over, like over here, especially on the Colonel's hat, how you can see that it clips part of that off. And then down here, the bottom portion of this logo, how it clips part of that off. I put an image mask in there, and then that way it keeps it confined in this area. So that's just a really quick little overview. I'll go ahead and show you the rest of this. This right here is for 3D text. And this right here is if you want to put a ticker in. And if you wanted to do that to scroll, let's go ahead and turn this back on here. And then if we wanted to put a ticker in, we do this. This is where our ticker would go. Go ahead and double click on it and change the text color to white. There we go. And now you can see where it's scrolling across. When you bring this into vMix, you're actually able to control the rate at which this goes across. You can adjust it in vMix once you have this graphic completed. So we'll go ahead and get rid of that because we don't need that ticker for right now. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off layer 2. And like I often do when I start building the graphic, is I turn off everything that I don't need. And we're going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to turn off everything but these bottom 2. So we're going to turn all this off. And as we proceed, I'm going to show you how we build out each one of these individual elements. And you can see there's an awful lot of different components to this graphic. It looks a lot more difficult than it is, but I'm going to show you everything you need to know on how to build this individual graphic. All right, so the first 2 things that we have, if we have this, and it looks like I'm turning my head all the way around. I'm looking at another screen that I have here. And right here we have these 2 elements. I'll turn the first one on, and this is the bottom left rectangle. And all I did to create this is I came over here, selected the rectangle button. I drew it out. Then I did the skew, which is going to be 20. So let's go to effects. We're going to do -20. And then I'm going to go to home. I'm going to make the fill color black. And then I'm going to put a little edging around here, as you can see. And we're going to make that white. And let's just start off with, say, a 3. And it looks like it's going to be less than that. So let's go to 2. And you can see that we've just made this first element right here. So let's go ahead and turn on the second one, which is the bottom rectangle. Okay, what you've noticed is we have another rectangle we created the exact same way, except this side, the skew is going in the other direction. So what I generally do, so my rectangles are going to be the same, I'll click on this one here, I'll right click and copy, and then I'll right click and paste, and you can see where rectangle 3 changes to rectangle 4. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to effects, and I'm going to change that skew from -20 to 20. And now you can see on this side where the skew's in the other direction. Let's go ahead and click on rectangle 4. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my arrow keys on my keyboard. And then I'm going to take that right arrow and I'm going to click on that and I'm going to move it over to the other side. Like that. Now, we have one rectangle on top of the other rectangle, and it gives us this little white line right here. So I'll show you how I get rid of this white line. I'll go ahead and click on this next one here, and let's go ahead and get rid of me for a second so you can see what we've got going on here. So far, we've highlighted the bottom left rectangle, the bottom right rectangle, and now I'm going to click on the eyeball here for the black cover up. And when I do that, you can see that this portion of the line goes away. Well, how did I achieve that? All I did is I went up here, I clicked on the rectangle, and I make me a small rectangle. And we're going to go back up here to home. We're going to change that color to black. I'm going to click on the rectangle 5, and then I'm going to use my arrow keys again, and I'm going to maneuver it down. That's a little bit too far. I'm going to click it up one time. Got to move it down 1. Okay, and you can see now where it's gotten rid of that bottom part. Since the next element is going to lay over top of this, we don't have to get rid of the entire line, just this part right here. So that's how we got rid of this element, this portion of the element right here. Let's go to the next thing, which is going to be our large left rectangle. And again, this is a background rectangle, so we did the exact same thing. We came over here, we pulled this out, we went up to effects again, we're going to do our -20 skew. Then we chose a gray color, so let's go home. We're going to choose a gray color, a little bit darker. And then we have this white border. So we're going to click on this color right here, we're going to click on white, And that border looks a little bit thicker, so let's go ahead and make this one 4. And that's how we made this right here. And then all I would do is I would hit my arrow buttons and I would move this up in place to where it finally rests right here. Now, as you can guess, what I did is I right-clicked and copied, and right-click and paste. I go up here to Effects, I change my skew to 20, and then I click on Rectangle 7, and with my arrow keys again, I'm going to move this to its resting position, which is going to be over here on the right-hand side. Now, all of these are just background elements. All of these are going to be covered up once we start building the other parts to the graphic, but it all adds to the overall effect of the graphic. So we're going to leave it right there, and then let's go turn on the next element. And there it is right there. I've showed you how we've made all these elements right here. Let's go ahead and turn on the next element, which is going to be the top left rectangle, which is this guy right here. All I did is I came down here to this rectangle, the one we created earlier. I right-click and copy and right-click and pasted. And then I went up here and I changed under Home. I go up here, I changed the fill color to a lighter shade of gray. I selected the color for the outline to be white, and I gave it a thickness of 2, and we moved it right here. So then what I did is I right-click and copied, and I right-clicked and pasted. I go up here to Effects. I change the minus 20 to 20. Then I use my arrow keys. I bring it over here, and we'll go ahead and make it visible. And we have this right here. So these are all the background elements. And let's go ahead and bring this up. And these are just all the background elements that you see. You can see where I built the entire graphic over top of these elements. And it doesn't look too spectacular when you see it here in GT Title Designer, but when you add those other elements on top of it, it really adds quite a bit of depth and pop to your graphic. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of the graphic again, and let's go ahead and reveal the next one. The next one is going to be the main left skew, and that's the background which everything else is built on. This main left skew is actually the element that I created that I use for all the other parts of this graphic. You can see how it's rounded over right here. Once I got this to be what I wanted, I made all the other elements based on this same radius configuration. So let's go up here and see what that is. Again, you can see we have a skew of minus 20, but let's go under Format, and you can see where on the X I have 19 and I have nothing on the Y. And that's what I'm going to use for the remainder of this graphic. So as you can guess, the next step that I did is I right-click and copied, right-click and pasted, and then I changed the skew from negative 20 to 20, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on that element, which is this element right here. And you can see when I click on it, how the skew goes from negative 20 to 20. So this is what we're going to use for the basis of the rest of the elements that are going to go on top of these guys, okay? We're going to have a visitor image mask, which is that this is what our image mask is going to be. And that is just so that we can keep that image confined to a particular space. So this is our image mask. So I'm going to turn that off for right now so I don't confuse you. Let's go to the visiting background color, and you can see where it totally covers up the white. The white is just what we're building the graphic on. And I know I'm saying that quite a bit, but you need to have this white area here so you know where your other elements are going to go. So all I did, I clicked on the main left skew, and what I did is I right-click and copied, and I right-click and pasted, and I don't want to do that again because I don't want to screw up my graphic. What it does is it makes an exact copy of this. You would just pull on the edge and bring it over this way some, and then what you don't have to worry about this edge over here because you're going to put your next element on top of it. So then all you would do is you would go up to where it says Home, click on Color, you would change the color, and then then you would name it whatever the next element was going to be, which would be the visiting background color. I hope that's not confusing. I'll put that on for you. And then the next is the visiting record background. So all I did is I took this element that I just made, I right-click and copied, right-click and pasted, and then I used the arrow keys again on my keyboard to bring it over this way, and this is going to be the portion for the visiting score background. See what I'm talking about with these radiuses here? These are identical, and the only way you're going to get these identical is to make one, and that's what we did when we created this white part, and then we just copy and paste and manipulate that to be the size that we want. So this area right here is where the image is going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in the visiting team image, and then I'm going to bring in the visiting team mask. And when I do that, you see what happens? I'm going to toggle it. When I bring the mask in, you can see where it takes the bottom portion of that NO and keeps it confined in that area that we made. For an image mask, all I do is I copied and pasted just like I did. I right-click and copied and right-click and paste, and then that's how I create that image mask. Now I did make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to click on this image mask here, visitor image mask. Let's go under format, and you can see where it's 195 by 130. But when I click on this, you can see where that is 236 by 145. All I did was mess with those, with the width and the height to make it a little bit smaller so that the image will stay inside this background that we made right here. So let's bring this back on. So now we have the visiting image, we have the visiting score. So right here is the visiting record background. And again, what I did is I used that exact same image that we created. I right-click and copied, right-click and pasted on this main white image like we did for these other two. And then I shrunk it down. And the reason that it looks this way right here is because I actually have it over top this element and I have it behind this element. And that's what gives it to looks like it cuts this back portion off. And then right above it, we are going to have the visitor record, which is going to be right here. And all I did to create this visitor record is I hit the ABC button. I drew me out a box. One thing I do want to tell you, I'm kind of get ahead of myself sometimes, is I want to click on this right here. Now, when I go up here under data, this says hidden. If you want to be able to change the color on these things, you're going to want to take it from hidden to where it's visible. And I'm going to click on here, show visible toggle. That way, if I want to turn it off and on, I can, but it's also going to give me the ability to change these background colors in vMix. This right here, one thing I wanted to show you, anytime that I make a text box, I want to make sure the information stays in that text box. So I come over here where these four corners are all converging to the edge. I click this down arrow and I want to click shrink because I want to make sure this information stays in this box. So let's go ahead and turn on the next piece. So all I did for these over here is I did the same thing with our white placeholder. I just right-click and copied and right-clicked and pasted. And then what I did is I shrunk it down. I drug it over here, and that's going to give us this right here. Then I went up to home. I changed the fill color to this color gray right here. And I changed the bordering color right here. I changed it to black. And then I gave it a thickness of 4. So for the next element, I just right-click and copied, right-click and pasted. Again, I use my keyboard arrow keys. I bring it over this way, and it's going to give us this. Again, this element is on top of this. That's why we get this nice little radius right here. And this is going to be our score color. And I did the same thing for this. I want to make sure when I go under data that it's not hidden, that it's show visible toggle, and that way I'll be able to change these colors in vMix and I won't have to come back to GT Title Designer. I have the home image right here. You can see where it spills out over the top and the bottom, and that's the reason why we do the home image mask. Watch what happens when I click on the image mask. You can see where the portion that spilled out over top of this goes away. Did the same thing with the image mask. Let me go ahead and let's see, take that image mask off again. I'm going to get rid of the home image, and I'm going to click on home image mask, go under format, you can see where that's 195 by 130, but when I click on the home background color, you can see where that's 236 by 143. Again, I made the image mask a little bit smaller so that when we click on the home image, it's not going to spill out over top of the area that we have for the home image. So now we have all of these elements. I'm going to go ahead and do the home record background, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the home record. We did those the same way as over here. All I did is on the one I created for the visitor, I right click and copy, right click and pasted. I went up here under effects. I changed the skew from -20 to 20. I changed this from 6 to -6 and from 46 to -46. And then I just bring it over here on this side with my arrow keys, and that's what gives us this portion of it right here. And then on visiting record was right click, copy, right click and paste. I use my arrow keys, I bring it all the way over here, and then I make this say home record, which is that right there. Moving right along, I have the main right skew, which is this right here. So this is what gives us this black area right here. That's what gives us this black area. As you can imagine, all I did was use that white template again. I copied, right click and copy, right click and pasted, and then I just changed the background color of it. Going up here to home, I just changed it to black. And I did the same thing over here for this side to make this portion black. I took the white template again, right click and copied, right click and pasted, came up here to home, selected the fill color, and I made it black. Let's go ahead and bring in the visitor score, which is right here. I made the visitor score using the ABC button. And this font that I have right here isn't one that was native to Microsoft. This one is called Nighthawk Fill. I like it a lot because it reminds me of the old block jerseys in football, so I use this a lot. Nighthawk Fill, and I use the size of 84. See where this says visitor score? All I did was right click on this and copy, right click and paste. It changes this to visitor score 1. And then I go back and I rename this to home score. And we're going to go ahead and turn on the home score. The next piece we're going to do is this right here, where it is the white part of this Pegasus background right here. Now you can see that it's a little bit different. It's actually the same radius and setup and everything, but when I smushed this down and made it not quite as high, it changes the shape a little bit, but I kind of like it. It kind of sets things off. So we're going to go to that. I'm going to click on that. That's the PSN background left, and we get this. And then we're going to do the PS background right, and we get that. Again, when we have these two rectangles overlapping, we need to get rid of that line, and I do that the same way. I just come up here, I click the rectangle, I draw me out a rectangle right here, and then I change that background color to white, and that's where we get that. It looks like the line goes away, but I actually have another little rectangle in front of it that's just covering that line up. So I made this side first, I made the left side first, and then I right click and copied, right click and pasted. I changed the skew from being negative to positive, and then I used my arrow keys and slid it over here. Then as you saw, we have one rectangle on top. Oops. We have one rectangle on top of the other. And all I did was I made a third rectangle, made the background color white, and positioned it so that it covers up that line. That's how we made this inner white portion. So the next two things I did is I actually had a graphic for Pegasus Sports Network. I took it to the program that I use called Clipping Magic, and it allows me to take different parts of that graphic out. So what I did is I have two different separate images now. One is the Pegasus text right here, and the other is the Sports Network text. When I made these two white pieces, I actually used my arrow keys and I brought it up a little bit above this top piece that we made as one of the background portions, and it just helps it stand out just a little bit. The next thing that I did is I made the clock, and that's right here. All I did was I went up here to the ABC, I clicked on it, I brought it over where I wanted it, I centered it in the middle, left to right, in the middle, up and down. I selected the Nighthawk fill, and I made the color white. And that's how we did the clock. I did the same thing for quarter. I clicked the ABC. I made me a little block right here. I did the same thing. I centered it in the middle left to right, in the middle up and down. I used this same font, this Nighthawk fill. Now, again, I use this right here. I want to make sure I shrink it because I want to make sure that when I change the quarter, I have first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. I have half and final. I want to make sure when I get to words like half and final that contain more characters, that they stay inside this box. So I always use this shrink function. I have two things right here. I have down and distance, and I also have flag. What I do in vMix UTC is when there's a flag on the play, I put together a button that will turn off the down and distance, bring the yellow flag text in for 6 seconds, then it takes the flag text out, and then it brings the down and distance back, which is a neat little feature. And so that's why I have two things for this field right here. For the timeouts, what I did is I used this rectangle box, and let's bring on the visiting timeouts. And let me click one of them. If I go under format, you can see that the width is 30 and the height is 6. And go under data, you can see that I uncheck the hidden box. I want them to show. And then I also have click show visible toggle. That's how we will turn the timeouts off and on, by doing the set X visible on and set X visible off in vMix UTC. So we got 1, 2, 3 timeouts. I did the same thing for both sides. After I make the first timeout, I just copy and pasted. I made the second one, then I copy and pasted the second one, and I made the third one. The last thing that I did was the animation, and it's nothing spectacular. I just have it a reveal. So what I did is I click this entire layer so I don't have to do the individual elements. I come up to animation, I click reveal, and I have it revealing from the middle. You can see it reveals from the middle. If I wanted to have it to reveal from the top, you could do that as well. But I like it revealing from the middle. That will conclude our tutorial for today, where we started off with our new football graphic for 2026. I'm actually going to put together a complete package. I'm going to make other elements. I'm working on a break graphic and an opening graphic, and the break graphic is going to look like this. And then I'll have an opening graphic, and instead of where the scores are right here, it'll have what the records are. Then I'm also going to have another place on here somewhere. I'm going to have to make it a little bit larger, where it'll have the venue and the name of the football field. I just have to point your attention to the score, 21-12. I didn't do that by accident. This is a homage to probably my favorite rock band, Rush, and I put that on there as just an Easter egg. So if you have any Rush fans out there, please respond to this tutorial, because I'm an absolute Rush freak. I've probably seen them at least 7 or 8 times. Didn't see them on this tour, a little bit too pricey for me. But that's going to conclude our tutorial for today. If you like what we're doing here at One Man Stream, please give us a thumbs up and a like. Make sure you do subscribe so you'll be alerted as soon as new videos are posted. If you have a chance, stop by our graphics store. That's onemanstream.com. That's where we have the graphics we've created and the vMix UTC controllers as well. They're just a few dollars a piece, but it is a way that you can help support me here at One Man Stream. And as always, thank you so much.